What's up, y'all? It's the Relentless podcast where we're stirring up passion and purpose for marriage.
That's right. We're diving into topics you always wanted to talk about. Real life, real struggles, real love, and real results. So what are we waiting for? Let's go in.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Relentless Love Podcast, where we are relentlessly pursuing passion and purpose in marriage. I'm Dominique.
I'm Brock Jones.
Yes. And we hope you enjoyed the last episode. So if you didn't catch it, please go back. We kind of share the story of how we met and how we got married so young. And today we're going to share about, oh man, when it hit the fan because of all the odds we had stacked against each other. So thank y'all for tuning in.
Yeah, thank y'all for going on this journey with us, man. Yeah, so you saw the first episode. We kind of talked about the magic, right? All the things that happen when you meet somebody and you got
not a fairy tale. We don't. It's not fantasy.
Yeah, you just got the feels. You kind of said something's different or something's good, and we pursued it. And like we talked about in the other episode, man. January to September, man. It didn't take long, not much. We ended up getting married, and it was beautiful, man. And I think it's safe to say we had a honeymoon baby.
We did,
right?
we had a little.
We had a lot of pressure built up, you know. Yeah. We was trying to do things the right way, right? And in that, it was beautiful for both of us to learn and grow from each other, to respect each other, and also try to honor our relationship and honor God at the same time. And so we got married, and pregnancy came. Yeah, it was there.
Yeah, and at the time I was studying dance. I mentioned that at TWU. So I had all the morning sickness, trying to drive, had to pull over a couple times. But just trying to do that thing in school, pregnant. Brock was trying to find his footing at work.
Our whole life changed, just to be honest. Overnight. It's like going from being single to being married, going from living, basically on your own to now we're cohabitating permanently now, right? To now, okay, man, we didn't have children. We didn't have, any children outside of our relationship. Now we got a baby on the way. And so like everything changed. The whole world changed like instantly, man. And so we were trying to figure things out. And she was pregnant. So I kind of took on the role of like, I'm the man. I need to make sure my wife is taken care of, and she's safe, and she's not concerned with anything. And so I just kind of put my head down and said, babe, sit back. I got it. Sit back. I got you. Right. And in a way that can seem good, right, and honorable. But on the flip side of it, it can have some adverse effects in a relationship based on how we approach marriage because we didn't get the premarital counseling like we talked about, right?
Right. Yeah. And it created a lot of tension because Brock didn't feel valued. Like, I'm like, that's what you should do. Why should I pat you on the back for doing what you should do? But I had a lot to learn. We were, like I said, I was 24. He had just turned 23. So we're young in general, also young in our faith. I didn't know what it meant to respect my husband. And to be honest, I was at a place spiritually that he wasn't. So I also felt a tension of, okay, I'm hearing these things from God, but I need to yield to him and submit to him. And all of that is just hard. And I was an independent woman. Brock said that, like, I had a house at 19. Like, I lived on my own. Like, even though he was provided, I can take care of myself. And so I didn't express that appreciation and affirmation to make him feel valued as a husband and as a man. And it created a lot of resentment. We didn't communicate enough. It was more transactional. Right. So it was, okay, this bill got to be paid. That bill got to be paid. And so all the emotions of my hormones are changing. I'm trying to figure out like all of that.
That's real.
All of that is just boiling. It was boiling.
Yeah. And as a young man, 23, right? And as being new in my faith and newly married and trying to figure all those things out, I immediately went into performance mode of like, these are my chores I got to do. These are the things I got to do as a husband, as a future father, and also as a new believer, right? Like I need to check all the boxes of not living in sin, not doing things the way God don't want it to do. So I literally just put my head down and said, I need to perform on the highest level that I need to hit the check boxes of being a man. And what I did not do was consult with my wife. This is my new partner, right? This is my, the one that's supposed to be my teammate. It's supposed to be the one that we do things together. And I kind of like just said, hey, you just stay over here and be pregnant and I'm going to do everything. And in the moment, I didn't really recognize that I was actually like hurting her and not valuing her in a way that made her feel, like not honored, right? And not appreciated, right? And she had lots of ideas and lots of things she wanted to contribute. And I didn't give her voice. I didn't give her space. And I think I was trying to overachieve for the approval of God and for her approval. And I was fighting through those insecurities. Like, she's spiritually more mature than me. Like, she's smart. She's this, she that. So I feel like I was probably just trying to prove a lot of things just to say, look at me, look at what I'm doing. And with the communication issues we had, it was tearing us down. And it was in the moment where it was supposed to be joyful, right? Like, we just got married. We supposed to be jubilee, like, yeah, look at us in love. And,
And it was not that. For a lot of, I remember just financially, that was a big win for us, living on one income. I'm going to school and it was hard. It was so much tension. Like, you could cut it with a knife when you walked in the space. And at one point I had to stop going to school. The doctor wasn't comfortable with me dancing, even though my instructor was pregnant. But anyway, that I believe that was God's plan. So I ended up at home. So then there was like this resentment of, oh, you at home, you pregnant, like, what are you doing? So then I was like, well, I can take in other kids. And I'm thinking that's helping. But then that created frustration of him walking home and seeing kids where he's ready to relax and, come to his sanctuary. So again, without us having a plan, we didn't have a vision.
Right.
It was just, we're just grasping at straws and just making everything worse.
Yeah, we had no plan, no vision, no goals. We were just trying to survive, and we didn't have people in our corner that were guiding us along, so to speak. Like, we had parents, we had our parents, but our parents would respect our marriage. They weren't trying to be the helicopter, like, what y'all doing? How y'all marriage going? They were giving us our space. And I think we did a good job of trying to create those boundaries and saying this is our marriage, but we didn't have mentorship. Yeah. And so we young and everything's new, trying to figure it out. And through all the obstacles and all the things of life, we started here and then we slowly just drifted apart in the season of our marriage where we actually should have just been really clinging and in love and prospering. And it got nasty. It got nasty, man. We had tons of arguments, disagreements. Oh, it was the smallest things, like what bills should we pay?
Right.
With the money that we have. And we would just try to talk about it and it would just blow up.
Yeah, there were a lot of landmines because everybody brings their baggage, right? Their past hurt. I came from a broken home. My parents were divorced at 9. And even that mindset of, I don't need a man, like all of those things you don't realize you bring into the relationship and these beliefs that drive your behavior.
Right.
So, it came to a head. By 7 months pregnant, we were separated.
Yep. I remember, our conversations and the environment in our home was so like tense and like we would just not want to even be in the same space.
We felt like roommates.
It was just roommates, man. Like, I come in, hey, what's up? And I just go in the kitchen, get something. She'd go in the back, be on the phone. I just be in the living room, and we would just be separate. And I felt alone. I felt rejected. I felt. And these were negative beliefs that I was believing that really wasn't true, but I was believing it in the moment. And y'all could probably attest to that. Just your perception of things can make you believe some stuff that's really not true, right? And I was just believing like, man, I'm alone. I ain't got no friends. My wife don't love me. This is all her fault because she, I see her texting or talking to her friends, and I'll be like, you can talk to them, but you can't talk to me. Like, what kind of stuff y'all against me? And I would have all these things in my mind to make me feel like it was me against everybody else. And she was pregnant. And so I was like, this is not healthy for either one of us. We need some space. Yeah. Because I don't want anything. This was my mind logically thinking through making a decision like this. Like, I don't want anything to happen to you or the baby due to us arguing, not in a physical sense, like I'm going to put my hands on you and nothing like that, but like the stress and anxiety and worry that can affect you and your health or the baby. And I'm trying to figure things out to be able to try to leave a legacy or build something stable for our family at the time because I was pursuing some fire department things. And I was like, I think it's best for us we need some space before this gets out of control. And so I was like, you need to just, and it was I was thinking back on it, I'm like, bro,
he put me. He told me I had to go, but it was good. Honestly, I remember like every Sunday just being at the altar praying, like crying out where he thought I was talking to people about our situation. I wasn't. So I didn't have an outlet either. I felt alone. And I was just like, I was so desperate, like, Lord, what should I do? I know divorce is not what you want. But we need some kind of space, like, for you to work this out. And so, I remember praying and the decision was made for me. So I moved back home. I was 7 months pregnant. And the baby ended up coming early. He was like, I think at 36 weeks.
Right.
So, that time, kind of made us miss each other a little bit. Brock came back. When the baby was born.
Right.
And so we took that opportunity. I think us just seeing the hope, which I believe that was part of God's plan. Like, God knew we needed our son to be some type of glue to hold us together. And so we did. It sparked a little something, seeing our family, and I moved back shortly after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that time, it gave us a chance to breathe. Because I didn't want the bomb to go off. Yeah. So I was like, I'd rather for that bomb, the fire that's going down that stem to phase out and not blow up, for her to be healthy and safe, and for me to be like in a space where I feel like I can have a sense of peace and direction. And when he was born, Savion, shout out Savion, man, seeing him and seeing my wife and being there, it was like, this is my family. We need to like tighten up, make this thing where it needs to be, because we were supposed to be together. Yeah. And you end up coming back shortly after, right?
And then our anniversary had come up. So because we didn't have an actual ceremony, we renewed our vows. Yeah, so, there were little things to like breathe life and give us a little hope. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have tools, if you don't have intervention, I think at that point we did pursue some counseling, like,
it was with our local church.
Yeah.
IPSC at the time, Pastor Curtis Lynch and Robert Green, Natalie Green.
Yeah, people who we trusted. But by that point, it was like, I don't know, we needed intervention early. We needed to surround ourselves with healthier couples. Yeah. So it was really, really rough. So even with a few efforts to have intervention by the time Samuel was 9 months, then we were separated again.
We were back.
It got so toxic. I remember looking for a knife or a gun, and that is not like me. So I remember locking myself in the room, and I was like, okay, enough is enough.
Right.
We need to separate for real. So I moved back to Houston. I had somewhat of a support system there, and kind of started over, and was a single mom. I went back to school, had a job, paid for daycare. It wasn't what I wanted. I still had hope for my marriage, but I knew we can't work this out together.
Right.
We need to give God.
It was deep roots, man. Yeah. We had deep roots of bitterness, deep roots of negative beliefs about each other that it was enforced by the situations that would happen, by all the communication breakdowns, by all the things that she wanted to do, her ideas and all that she wanted for our family. And we could never agree because I had different ideas. And so you got all of that. And then you have these ideologies, these ideas in your mind, like as a man, for me, going to work, working so hard, doing all this stuff, and then feeling like you're not respected, or you come home and feel like nobody's acknowledging you at the home. I just had jealousy. I thought that she was giving all her time to our son, not giving time to me. She was giving her time and conversation to her friends and to other people and not to me. And so it just, those wedges just got deeper and deeper to the point to where it was like, this just ain't gonna work. We never got into physical types of things, but verbal and just emotional abuse was there. It was present, right? And she left. She was like, I can't take this no more. And when she went to Houston and we were separated like that, it kind of hurt a little bit to have to go to Houston and see y'all down there by yourself trying to make a living and do your thing and all of that. And me being away from y'all and kind of just feeling like, man, this some old baby mama, baby daddy type vibe stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, what?
Because by that point, you had like initiated divorce.
Yeah,
the divorce process. I got the paper, so then I was like real bitter then.
Yeah. I was like, man, forget this, but the other word, you know what I mean? Like, yo, forget all of this. Forget marriage. This whole relationship with God thing is trash. Like, I thought that I was doing all these things that are supposed to be godly, and look what it got me. My wife don't even love me or respect me and don't value me. And God, you're not blessing me. You're not blessing this. This is the opposite. Like, I feel like I had a better life pre-Jesus because of the way things were going. And so I was like, man, whatever. Like, I'm done. And I did. I filed for the divorce at the divorce papers, man. And it didn't pan out.
Yeah.
Here we are, right? It didn't go the way that we thought it was going to go.
Even your desire pursuing the fire department. I remember you were so devastated, like after all that work, after all the running, it didn't work out. So
that hurt. That hurt.
Angry.
Yeah, I was in a dark place. I went back to old Brock, really, went back to a toxic lifestyle that I don't approve of. I don't condone. That's my journey, but I just said, I'm going to do what I'm used to. That made me feel like I was in a good space.
And the Bible says when you return to that, it's 7 times worse. And I just remember, like, even looking back at pictures, like your eyes were just dark. You were just different. Like, I knew this wasn't the man I married.
Yeah. It was a time in my life that I didn't have a conscious man at that time. And I'm thankful that God didn't like let up on me. He allowed me. And everything I did was out of bitterness because I believed something that wasn't the truth about my experiences in our marriage. And it drove me in bitterness, and bitterness had me on a cliff. But I'm so grateful that I had got broken down because as I had my breakdown, my eyes was open. I couldn't do nothing. I'm on the floor looking up because I had nowhere to go. I was at the lowest moment. I had nothing to do but look up and say, God, what's going on? Like, what is this? My wife's gone. My son is gone. I'm just existing in my employment. Everything that I'm doing to try to satisfy me is temporary and it's not working. I'm still in this mess. Like, who am I, man? What is this? And that was probably one of the greatest moments in my life in regards to having an epiphany of what I need to do with my life. And without that, I wouldn't be here today,
Yeah, we were separated, like 1.5 years?
Yeah.
Definitely was a solid year. But it's interesting. I thought that I hadn't done anything wrong, right? Now, I knew, like, my heart, I didn't respect you as much, but I didn't see, like, it was him, right? It's
right.
Point the finger. But I went to this retreat in February, I think, of 2011. And I just had such a powerful encounter with God. And even the scripture, it was Psalms 103, I think, where it talks about iniquity. Like, God was like, you think you're good, but actually your heart is not what it needs to be. Your heart towards your husband was not right. And even the expectations I had put on you had you in that performance cycle. And God just convicted me of that. Like, who am I to have this standard for you that God didn't even have for for you. God was pleased with where you were and your efforts. Like you did the best you could with where you were. And I should have been affirming you and honoring you. And I just didn't know how to do that because it wasn't modeled for me.
Yeah.
And being a strong woman, like I'm like, you know, all this pride, all of those things. And God broke me down. So he broke me down. He showed me how my past hurts were brought in and it tainted how I saw you.
Right.
You know, and I was triggered in our communication with parts of my childhood and my upbringing. So in that season, it was space for God to heal that. Right. And I needed to be healed and whole so I could be the wife you needed.
Right.
And I remember there was a part where I had to reach out to you and like forgive you. And we ended up arguing. Like I remember I was like, see, God, I'm done. Like I'm done. But literally the next day, it was powerful. We had this time of like in this prayer room, it was like a waterfall with warm, like soothing water. And I just remember coming out of that with a changed heart. So much so that you thought I was literally psycho. Because I was like,
yeah, it was night and day kind of vibes, man. Like
God put this love and this grace in me and literally a passion to begin pursuing Brock again, even though he should have been pursuing me. But what God showed me was that the path that you were on was like you could have literally died. It was leading to destruction. And if I didn't choose the God kind of love to come after you the way Jesus did for me, like if Jesus loved me where I was and laid down his life, even while I was a sinner, why couldn't I do that for you?
Yeah.
And so God charged me with that. And I was like, okay. And it wasn't out of obligation. He literally put a heart and a passion back in me.
That's powerful,
and it took time. Like, and that was February. And it wasn't until that summer, like you had moved on, you had somebody else. And God knows he put a grace on me because for you to tell me, like, what about her? What do you mean? So all language could have
That's real.
What do you mean? What about her? But God was like, just be patient.
Right.
Love him where he's at. Even the smoking, the drinking, which I never, like when we met, I didn't tolerate. And I put that standard on him. God was like, you going to love him and you going to kiss him with smoke on his lips, all of that. And it showed me how to love like God loves. And it wasn't easy, but that was the journey back to God, like healing and restoring our marriage.
Yeah. So, yeah. Lots of brokenness, man. Sometimes we run from brokenness, man. And in that season, I had to learn to kind of embrace parts of me that as a man, we resist. And sometimes it's like, bro, this is wrong. You know, like you're not healthy.
Yeah.
You're not healthy. And I could have resisted that and I could have ran from that, but I had nowhere else to go. So I had to lean into the fact that like, bro, you messed up and you need to be healed, bro. Like you tripping right now. And her calling me, which was like, it was just a different energy because the way we interacted when we separated and then just some of the things that happened in between was like, all right, we are done.
Yeah. It was
right.
Cold,
it was all of that, right? And it was just a transaction at that point. Like, yo, I'm gonna come down there, I'm gonna get Savion, I'm gonna hey, I'm gonna send, here's the money for this or that. Y'all good? Okay, I'll be back or whatever, right? And then out of nowhere it's like, hey, how you doing? What you doing? I miss you. Like, I'm like, what? Like, what is this? And like, I had my other situation with the other person as well. And it was weird. But when I had my moment where when I got broken down after New Year's party, God opened my eyes, man, to see that I was doing life my way. I was doing things in a way I thought needed to be done. I was performing for him and for you in the marriage, and that the way I was living at this point, knowing the grace of God, knowing the love, having a knowledge of it, right? Knowing Jesus, knowing about the cross, knowing about how I gave my life to him, and then now how I'm living. He's like, you spitting in my face, son. It's like, I was literally a prodigal. Like, he's like, you spitting in my face because you know better. And he just charged me to man up, and he shined the light on everything. And he said, this is what you're making. But if you allow me to come in, if you allow me to be the leader, if you allow me to mold you, I can show you how to love because I know her heart. You don't. I know her DNA. I know what makes her thrive. You don't, but you ain't never asking me. You just doing what you think. And I was like, wow, God, I'm sorry. I had nothing to do with it. Say, I'm sorry.
Sure.
And he said, man, he showed me who I was supposed to be. Because I asked him, I said, who am I? He said, Brock, this is who you're supposed to be. This is what I put in you. This is the vision that I have for this. And I didn't have it before then. And he said, it's tied to her. And without her, the same music, some of y'all didn't know, the same music, transformative movement, all the things that everybody has experienced. He was like, this is who you're supposed to be. And you ain't never asked me. And this is what's going to make you come alive. And this is what y'all supposed to do together, among other things. And if you don't man up and step up and pursue, then your life is going to continue to be in this cycle of gray and no life. And he said, what you going to do? And then shortly after that, she started calling me. And it just, everything began to have hope restored. It wasn't fixed yet, but there was a glimmer of hope where we were like, this is done. This is dead. And God said, no, it ain't. There's some hope if you would reach out for it.
Yeah. And I want to encourage you, if you are separated or maybe you're in that, like, you feeling like roommate stage, we always hear it takes two, like two have to want it. Actually, it doesn't. Like he had given up. I still had hope. I was cold. I had a walnut. But it was me and God. So that too was me and God. I was in covenant with God and I was praying for my marriage and believing for it, even though I had that wall up. So don't believe the lie that, oh, well, we both got to want it. If one of you wants it enough and it's already what God wants, that's enough to fight for your marriage. Yeah. And it might take a period of separation, but that separation was good for us. Right. I do think, it was a process for us to come to that decision of separation. So I do encourage you to be prayerful, but the right way to do separation is there's still communication. There's boundaries around it where we're going to date each other. We're not going to let other people in. It can't just be a free for all. Like there has to be intentionality and goals that you're working on. Some healing, intentional healing that's happening. Maybe we're doing individual counseling. I didn't know we were both getting it. Like the Spirit of the Lord was counseling us. Right. But if you're going to agree, and it has to be an agreement, I would say that's the ideal situation. But God still moved in the midst of that. Yeah. So, Brock, what wisdom would you share with the listeners, like from that season of brokenness and the beginning of restoration and reconciliation? What takeaways would you share?
I think the mistake I made was like making decisions out of bitterness, right? And making decisions out of emotion, and out of feelings that led me to do a lot of destructive things that I can't take back. But it was a lot of decisions that had I just really took some time in the separation, right? To not even try to process what was going on, but just to be like, whatever, and like go off. That didn't help me at all. It caused more harm than it did help. Separation or time to unplug or time to back away from something toxic should be intentional time to go and say, let me analyze, let me look in the mirror, let me evaluate, let me process and see what's going on. And I didn't. And it just led to a lot of self-inflicted wounds, a lot of hurt on to you and towards you and my family, which I sincerely apologize for. But man, like if you're going to take some time away or separate or back away for a minute, don't just like emotionally react to stuff and just do things.
Or like, binge to try to mitigate.
Because it doesn't heal. True healing, and this is why I won't shy away from my faith, man. True healing comes from the direction of God, the Holy Spirit coming in and exposing, shining light on things to say, hey, I'm not convicting you or condemning you. I'm showing you where you will fix this or allow me to help you fix this, then you will become whole. And I would just say that, like, evaluate and spend some time, asking the Lord to show you like what's going on within me. And where am I at in this? Because had I did that earlier, I think a lot of things would be different, faster, sooner. Right?
Yeah, I think also like it's the little things that if not resolved, if they're not checked, then they just mount up and it feels overwhelming. So we didn't have any major issues. It was just little things that were chipping away and creating a wedge and driving us farther apart. And we should have had intervention earlier. We needed those premarital tools. But whether you have premarital counseling or not, it doesn't matter. Find somebody that you trust. Find seasoned couples that you can just be vulnerable with. That I would say that too. That's super critical. You have to be willing to be honest about where you're at and what you're feeling and expose those lies so that you can have a space for truth to come in.
Yeah. And I'll speak to as well briefly. Like I had a performance-based relationship with God, and I had a performance-based relationship with you. What I mean by that is like, hey, I'm doing X, Y, Z, or A, B, C. I'm doing it. Look at me. Give me applause, right? Let me do all these things to get a response out of you. And when I wasn't getting those types of responses, then I felt like, okay, well, this is not worth it.
Yeah.
And it was based on what I was doing and I should be getting something out of it. And that was a wrong perspective because the things that I was doing didn't necessarily matter or weren't valuable to her.
Yeah.
And I was performing, and God never asked me to perform for him. And you never asked me to perform for you. You asked me to love you and know you, right? And the same to God. So if you see yourself having a performance-based relationship with somebody where you only get responses out of what you do, or you're doing things to get responses out of a person or reactions out of a person, you kind of got to step back and say, okay, is this a relationship or transaction?
Yeah.
I was living in that, and I had a wrong perspective. And it hurt me and it hurt you and it hurt my relationship with the Lord. And so my biggest takeaway was like, don't perform for people of God, man. Like, know people, love people, be gracious with people. And at that point, it frees you. So that was a huge takeaway for me in that time. And I'm grateful that I learned that. So, man, y'all take that, please. Take it. Take it and grow from it.
Yeah. And I'll share one more thing, just encouragement, like to a wife that's maybe standing, and the husband is doing his own thing, or maybe you're in church and he's not. Whatever it is, I can say from experience, there is power in prayer. There is power in you being that salt and light to him. You learning to love him where he's at and just extend grace. The Bible talks about that in 2 Peter. That is transformative. And it was worth it because when I stood for our marriage, now all of the things that we've done together, like I wasn't just doing it for us. It's for a legacy. It's for the people we've been able to impact. It's so much bigger than us and our marriage. And God has a plan for you. So just hang in there.
Right. Definitely, man. And don't give up. Don't give up. You're looking at a couple that has been down there. We told you the good, the bad, and the ugly. We've been down those roads when we thought it wasn't going to survive.
Yeah.
Here we are years later, man, thriving, and we put in some work by the grace of God. So thank y'all for tuning in. Relentless Love Podcast. We're relentless in the pursuit of passion and purpose within marriage. The next episode, we're going to go a little bit deeper, man. Let y'all know kind of how we climbed out of that pit, kind of how we journeyed back up into the climb. I know you're going to relate, so stay tuned, lock in with us. Much love.